Episode 57B, My Journey from Salesman to Entrepreneur. I continue to keep an eye on the Boston Sunday Globe Classified while I worked at Treasure Greetings. An ad for a better job caught my eye and I sent a quick resume. Unican Company from Shrewsbury, Mass. Needed missionary salesmen. Unican made polyester body filler for commercial auto body repair. It was commonly called plastic. Previous to plastic being invented, bodymen used a melted lead system to fill auto body dents and holes. It required talented craftsmen, expensive equipment, and lots of time. This new stuff was simple and inexpensive. The company held interviews at the Midtown Motor Inn on Huntington Avenue, which was later leveled to build the Prudential, the new John Hancock building, and all the other new buildings near Copley Square. Dave Johnson and Bill Massera did the interviews. Dave was to be the new business sales manager. Bill was the existing Unican salesman to the auto body supply distributors around New England. They needed two new salesmen plus Dave. They hired John Conlon from Worcester and me. We were going to be supplied with a Ford Econoline van. It would be fitted out with a white tile floor, wall paneling, miniature cabinets, little white stools, white shelving and racks to hold glass slabware like test tubes, beakers, flasks, and pipettes. It looked like a mobile lab, and that was the whole idea. We were missionary salesmen. We built sales territories. We would travel to a city where Unican had no distributor business. Then we would cold call and produce body filler sales from local auto body shops. The way we got those sales was ingenious. Excuse me. We would split up the city in three ways by geography and use the yellow pages and street maps to find the body shops. There was no GPS in those Neanderthal days. Each salesman wore a white lab coat and carried a clipboard. I would drive into Joe's Auto Body and park near the main door. Then I would go in and entice Joe out to our fitted truck. He would sit next to me on a little stool while I showed him why our plastic was better, longer lasting, higher quality, less toxic, and more reliable than the other brands. As a pièce de résistance, I would pour polyester resin into a test tube and then add some thixotropic agent, then shake it up in a beaker and show how it would not separate back to its constituent parts, as our competitors' products did. I had a whole script of snappy patter and often made big sales to these customers. Sometimes I would get a question about toxicity. I developed my own shocking finale. I would say, "This stuff you can drink." I would have a previously prepared cocktail ingredients, and I would have some orange juice in a container and some ethyl alcohol in a flask with a phony label stating it was the main plastic chemical component. I would then pour both into a clean test tube. I would then lift it up, say, "Salud," drink it, and smack my lips and say, good stuff. How many cases do you want?" After a period of days of that cold calling and taking orders, Dave Johnson would take all the orders and go to the best auto body supply distributor in the city. He would entice that distributor to become a regular Unican buyer by giving him all the sales that we had collected from the shops. Thousands of dollars in orders without the distributor lifting a finger worked wonders. Unican became the body filler sales champ wherever we went. We traveled throughout New England, New York, and into Ohio before one of my other resumes paid off. My 2-year gig with Unican gave me experience in selling to body shops. That experience got me my first good job with Acme Quality Paints, Inc. of Detroit. Acme's Bill DeYoung called me at home and Gene relayed the message to me. This was before cell phones, of course. I called Bill back from Cleveland, where I was working. Bill was the Eastern Regional Sales Manager and told me Acme needed a salesman for New York City, Long Island, and Connecticut. Bill lived in New Jersey but wanted to interview me right away, so he came to Cleveland. He hired me right on the spot in the first interview. I gave a week's notice to Unican and soon went home. I was required to move from our home in Winthrop, Mass. Into a new territory as soon as possible. Acme made and sold refinishing paint to auto body suppliers. The suppliers then sold it to auto body shops. The pay was better than I ever made. The base was a livable wage. The commission structure was good. The benefits were all fully paid, medical insurance and a retirement program. I got a new car every year and all expenses. I was trained by Bill DeYoung and spent some training time in a Brooklyn body shop being tutored by the owners, a couple of typical New York Italians. They were rough and tough, but fair guys with lots of bark on them. While training, I would travel to New York City each Monday and return home each Friday. I started to look for some place to live. Long Island was suggested, but I was not interested. I looked at the Bridgeport, Connecticut area. I finally keyed into the New Haven area. We then decided on a single-family home on Guilford Harbor. The landlord was another Mick named Dolan. He liked the Murphys. It was right on Long Island Sound. We loved it and we could afford the rent. Guilford was in the driving distance of every part of the territory, but eastern Long Island. There I needed to get a hotel. I was good at opening new accounts at auto parts distributors that specialized in auto body supplies. We called them specialty jobbers. I was quite successful and I became the best salesman in the country for the company. I won top awards at every annual sales meeting. Amazingly, I was able to do that job in 2.5 days a week. Once a week, I would travel to New York City or Long Island. I would make my sales calls at the existing jobbers, then go to the body shops to create demand for my paint from the jobbers' customers. One day a week, I would do cold calling on prospective new jobbers, plus visit my Connecticut jobbers. The half day was report filing and the very creative writing of my expense account. The job was very easy for me and I was soon bored. I liked the setting up new accounts part of the job. I even seriously thought about taking on an additional sales job with another firm while holding the Acme job. In other words, to double dip. I could have done it, except for the unexpected sales meetings with bosses and visits to New York by corporate bigwheels who needed excuses to visit Gotham. I was expected to secure them around. My prospects for increasing my pay were limited. Although I did well in sales, the commission plan was set up to take into consideration my last year's sales, and my required sales goal grew ever larger and more difficult each year. I could have earned more by being promoted to regional sales manager, but those manager duties would have been onerous to me. I began to think about how limited the auto body market was. Selling instead into the industrial market
If this
began
episode
to intrigue me. Factories were
sparked
everywhere.
something for you,
Purchasing agents
head to the
and
show notes
engineers had fixed
and make
budgets.
a donation.
They bought products every day.
Buy Me a Coffee
Moreover,
is an
they were
app
not spending their
that
own
allows
money
consumers
like
of
by mostly
podcasts,
Jewish jobbers
YouTube,
who were the
etc.,
owners and tight with a
who
buck.
appreciate
After 3 or 4
a
years with
creator's
Acme, I began
podcast,
to read industrial
in this
paint
case
trade
mine,
magazines, especially
to
the
donate.
classifieds at the back.
that helps keep
There were
my
sales
mic
jobs
on
that were
and my
advertised
camera
every month
on
in my area.
and my story
I spoke
flowing.
to other industrial salesmen
Rather
for
than
advice.
suggest a
I began to
donation
plan
amount,
another move.
please judge
After much
what
thinking and
value
planning, I
you
took
get
a
from
job
this
selling
and other
industrial coatings
episodes.
from a now defunct
And join my
Bridgeport company,
supporters.
Voltac.
Make your
I
donation
spent the
to
rest of my business life selling into the manufacturing
buymeacoffee.com.
sector.
One long word.
I also once owned a Napa
/
Auto Parts store in Putnam,
degreasings,
Connecticut.
DEGREASINGS.
And another entrepreneurial venture, part of an injection molding plastic molding business in Leominster, Mass.
Degreasings.
Other businesses I owned or part owned were an investment group that sold equipment lease tax shelters and an industrial cutting tools distribution business. I once made a startup pitch to a group of business leaders in Munson, Mass. I was trying to start a fiber optic light guide manufacturing business in Palmer. I was successful in raising the startup money, but I learned a hard lesson from that. Do not give others financial control. I also owned an arts and entertainment complex with a nightclub, brewery, and restaurants, and finally, a successful industrial machinery business. I ran that out of my own warehouse, 1/2 mile from my Southbridge, Mass. Home until 2024, when I kinda retired. Struggling upward was difficult, but I loved it. If this episode sparked something for you, head to the show notes and make a donation. Buy Me a Coffee is an app that allows consumers of podcasts, YouTube, etc., who appreciate a creator's podcast, in this case mine, to donate. That helps keep my mic on and my camera on and my stories flowing. Rather than suggest a donation amount, please judge what value you get from this and other episodes and join my supporters. Make your donation to buymeacoffee.com, one long word, /degreasings, DEGREASINGS, buymeacoffee.com /degreasings. Thank you.